We're up to the beginning of Tzadi Zayin Amid Aleph. The last thing we talked about, we're not going to go into the details of the back and forth of Rav and Rav Meir and the Chacham and the Shittas are reversed, but Bekitzer, Rav Paskin like Rav Meir, and that was regarding that there's Shinoi is not koina by Avodim. Why? Because Avodim are like Karka. Avodim are like Karka. That's the main point. There's a shayla throughout Shas. Do we treat Avodim like movables or like Karka? Rav is clearly saying Avodim are treated like Karka. Here's the problem. Umi Amar Rav Avda Kimekarki Dami. Did Rav actually paskin that Avodim should be treated like Karka? Here's the problem. V'Amar Rav Daniel Bar Katina Amar Rav Hatekeh ba'avdi shel chaver v'asa b'malacha. Okay, it's interesting. You go to someone's slave, you steal him, and you force him to do work. And then you return him. What's the halacha? Pater. You don't have to pay anything else. Now here's the rule. The rule is like this. What does that tell you about the dynamics of avodim? So it's like this. If I steal a broom, I steal a broom from you, and I use it to sweep up the whole floor of my house, making it improved financially. You know what I have to return to you? The broom. I don't have to pay for any additives. I stole a broom, I return a broom. That's because it's movable. But what if instead of stealing a broom, I break into your house and I live there for a month? So what's the halacha? I have to pay rent. Why? You can't steal a home. It's not possible. Therefore, when you break in, all you're doing is renting it. So you have to pay for it. So here's the shayla. I grab your eved and I use him, and then I steal him from you, and then I return him to you. So what's the halacha? I don't have to pay for any improvements. If avodim are like metaltalin, if avodim are like movables, then they're treated like anything else that you steal, which is you return the item, yoytzazayin. But if you hold avodim as like karka, where it's not possible to be stolen, so you have to pay for rent, so I should have to pay for the rental of your eved. So the fact that Rav holds that you don't have to pay for the rental indicates that avodim are treated like movables, and you steal them and you return them. So how could Rav say that avodim are treated like karka? If they're treated like karka, you should have to pay for rent. Why not? You used it. So says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. You know what the case is? The case is taka avodim are treated like karka. If I treat it like karka, I should have to pay rent. The answer is, I stole your eved not during work hours. Therefore what? It's zenena v'zeloi chaser. Meaning, you're saying, if I steal your eved, let's assume an eved is mamish like a house. So let's talk about a house for a second. We've got an eved. I break into your house and I sleep in your home. Stealing. It's not stealing the home. You can't steal the home, but I'm using it without your permission. I have to pay rent. But what if it's a house that you're not using? It's called zenena v'zeloi chaser, which according to one opinion, you don't have to pay for. So really, avodim is treated like karka. But, so why don't you have to pay rent? If you steal it, you should have to pay for like a rental fee for stealing it. The answer is, you stole him during hours that don't affect the owner. The owner doesn't use him on Fridays. You stole him on Fridays. So it's zenena v'zeloi chaser. It's akin to breaking into someone's home that he doesn't plan on using anyway. So says the Gemara. Ki had shalcha Rav Ava lemari barmar boy min Rav Huna. He said, ask Rav Huna the following: Hador b'chatzah chaver shel midaita. I break into your house without your permission, but you're not planning on using the house. So what's the halacha? Daf Tzadi Zayin Amid Aleph, about a couple lines in. Tzarich lahalois lo yischar, ain't tzarich lahalois yischar. Shalcha ain't tzarich lahalois yischar. You don't have to pay for it. Why? Because zenena v'zelei chaser. Meaning, really, avodim are treated like karka. So if it's treated like karka, if you steal an eved, you should have to pay for it. Just like if you steal a house, you have to pay rent. The answer is that you only have to pay rent if the person was going to use the house. If the person wasn't going to use the house, it's zenena v'zelo chaser. You're benefiting from using the house. The owner of the house doesn't mind because it's zelo chaser. You don't have to pay. So too, the cases where he stole the eved, shaloi b'shas malacha. He stole him at a time where the owner doesn't use him, so it's zenena v'zelo chaser. Correct. We're talking about a specific case where he does not care. If he cares, of course you have to pay. But it's zenen of zelo chaser, meaning it's not like it's a rental house. It's an extra house he doesn't notice.
So the owner of the eved has to also not
So
care.
why would he not care? So it's at a time where he doesn't use him.
But the body of the
eved. So my father's making a great point. The Gemara is going to ask this akasha. I understand why if I break into your house when no one's around and you're not planning on using it, it's Zenan of Zelachasa for two reasons. First of all, if you remember, we had this a while ago. I don't remember when, but we had this. I could have been like a couple months ago. That the reason why Zenan of Zelachasa by a house is because a dilapidated house, it falls apart. Also, the shadim that'll attack. So you actually want someone to stay. Like when you go away, you want someone to go in, turn the pipes on. It's actually beneficial. So the reason it's not like zenan of zelachaser. It's zenan of zenena. It's not like zelachaser. If I use your eved when he's during downtime, that's actually bad because now he's more run down. Like he's a body. Like he's got joints and he's got ligaments. You use him all the time. It's not zenan of zelachaser. It's zechaser. If I don't use my Eved on Fridays and you steal him on Fridays and use him, we're going to use him anyway. No, he's now weaker. He's getting tired. He won't work as well. His ligaments are going to break down. It's not the same as a house. So the Gemara says, Hachi Hasha, how do you compare a slave to a house? When it comes to a house, using it is Zen and of Zelachaser. Why? According to one opinion, is because an inhabited house remains inhabitable, meaning a dilapidated house breaks down. That's just the nature of it. You got to check to make sure that the plumbing is working, and you want someone to be in your house, so it's Zen and of Zelachaser. Or we had another opinion that there's a shade who attacks dilapidated houses. Either way, I want my house to be used. Nichole. As my father mentioned, but when you use a slave, he's getting weaker. It's weakening him. So how could you say it's zenan of zelochaser? I think it's zenan of zechaser. So you know what the answer is? Amri hachanami nichale deliglistere avde. The answer is no. A slave owner would rather his slave work, even if it weakens him, so that he doesn't get used to being lazy. So it's kedai for my side. Let's say I don't work my slave on Fridays. You take him. It's not good for me because he's tired now. I'd rather him be tired and be used to working than to have 24 hours of him just smoking cigarettes and lying around. So therefore, it is zenan of zeloi chaser, and it's actually nichale because you prefer the eved to work. Okay. So now the Gemara says the following story, and as you're going to see, there's a major issue with what they did. So the Gemara says, Bei Rav Yosef Bar Chama have a tokiv avde de inshi demasik bezuze. Okay, Rav Yosef Bar Chama had people that owed him money, but they couldn't pay. So what he would do is he would go to their house, and when they would have off days by their slaves, he would take their slaves and make them work. Now here's the problem. As we're going to see, I'll sort of spoil the Gemara. The reason why he did this, it's stealing the slaves, as we just got finished saying, it's not stealing the slaves, it's zenan of zelo chaser. But here's the issue with this, and this is why the Gemara is going to say he had to stop. This is very close to ribbis. Because, think about it, I lend you $1,000. If I get anything more than $1,000 back, that's interest. What am I getting back? I'm getting back the $1,000, but on the off days, I'm actually stealing your eved. So that's not good, because then it's like I lent you $1,000, but I'm getting back $1,000 and free slave labor. So it's one thing to do this to an eved of just a rando, but if you do it to people that owe you money, that's way worse. And that's the Gemara is going to point out. So the Gemara says that he would do this. So first the question was, Amrle Rava Bray, so Rava his son said, my time of in Marhachi, why isn't this stealing? Forget about the interest. He would take avodim of people that owed him money. He would take their avodim on off days and have them work in his house. I guess practically he got to know the people. So like if I lend Adam money, so I interact with him, I notice that Adam has a slave, and he's like, he doesn't work on Friday, send him over. And he would take the slaves on off days of the people that he lent money. So first the question is, without permission, by the way, we just take them. So the first question is, why isn't that stealing? Now we just got finished saying why this is stealing, why this isn't stealing, because it's zen and evzelachas. But let's get there. So he says, why isn't it stealing? So he says, Damar of Nachman, Avden ohum krisi l'shave. So he said the reason why it's not stealing is because a slave is not worth the bread of his stomach. Meaning, I feed him. When he stole the slaves for the day, he would actually feed them. So he said the owner, it's kedai for the owner because slaves eat more than they work. So feeding slaves is a net negative. So I'm actually feeding them so the owner's happy. So Amar Lei, Eimad Amar of Nachman, maybe slaves only, because Rabbi Nachman said that slaves eat more than they make. So he says maybe that's only true, could go in Doru Avde, like his slave. His slave's name was Doru, the Merakid Bekuvi, that he would dance in bars in order to earn drinks. So his slave was not a hard worker. He would hang out in the bars and dance for drinks. So Rav Nachman used to say, slaves drink and eat more than they make. Yeah, his slave eats more than they make. But the Gemara says, Kulu avdim eved avdi. Maybe the average slave, the owner is happy to pay him and feed him, not to pay him, to feed him, because it's worth it. Why are you saying that what you're doing is beneficial for the owner? Because you're feeding them. I think the average slave probably makes more money in the day than he feeds. So the Gemara says, Amrle, Anokar of Daniel Svirle, as we just quoted from Rav Daniel, Damar of Daniel, Berev Katina Marav, Hatoikiv Avde Shechaver Va'asa B'Malach and Potter, Amanichole Delisser Avde. As we just got finished saying, you're allowed to steal a slave on the off day because it's Zen and of Zelochaser, because the owner would rather the slave not have time off, even if it does weaken him. So he's saying that's the reason why I take the slaves. So Rava's son, who's this? Rava's talking to his father. This is Bei Rav Yosef Bar Chama. So Rava says to his father, you've explained how it's not stealing, because it's Zen and of Zelochaser. But Amr Lehani Mili Hechadalei Masik Bozuzi, Mark even the Masik Bozuzi, Michsi Karibis. But you can't do this. It's one thing to steal someone's slave. It might be permissible, but they owe you money. So now it looks like ribis. Why? Because you're lending $1,000, getting $1,000 back, but also getting free slave labor. And yes, while the two actions are really unrelated, it looks really bad. Right? They're not really related because it's not like you're giving him slave as part of the payments for the loan, but it looks really bad. And therefore Rava says to Rav Chama, this is not appropriate. And I'll prove it to you. Dam Rav Yosef Bar Minumi, Rav Nachman, Afal Pisha Amra Dar B'Chatz Chaver Shlomi Daita. In Tzarich La'alis L'Schar, Hevev Dar B'Chatz Chaver, Tzarich La'alis L'Schar. The halach is, as we said, that you could stay in someone's house if they don't mind, because then end of Zelochaser, but not if they owe you money. Because if they owe you money, it looks like you're getting your money back and you're getting free board. So that's not allowed. So why are you allowed to do this? So Amar Le Haderbi, he said, okay, I'll stop. Meaning I won't do this anymore. Good point. Good ha'ar.
The owners of the slave owed money.
It's a bad optic. It's a very, very bad optic. He said, okay, I'm going to stop.
But halachically it wasn't ribis.
It's not ribis deraisa because it's not ribis ksutza. Even ribis derabana, it's ribis derabana. It's mechzik ribis. It's not ribis deraisa because ribis deraisa would be, I'm going to lend you, stipulated, I will lend you $1,000 and pay you $1,000 and give you my free slave labor. That's ribis ksutza, where it's stipulated at the time of the loan. This is just, it's not deraisa, it's derabanan. It looks really bad.
It looks good. People are less likely to say no. If you were to ask.
Correct. It's just not. It's not a good look. Okay. It's mar hatoikev svinasa shel chaverev asa b'malacha. Very interesting. I steal your boat, and I use it. I steal your boat and I use it. So here's the question: what do you pay me back? So there's two options. You could pay me rent for the boat, or you could pay me the damages that I did for the boat. So, now, and they could be different amounts. Right? I could have done $100 worth of damage, but the rent is $1,000 a day. So Rav says, Rav says the owner of the boat can take whatever is more. He can take rental fee for the amount of time that you stole it, or he could take damages fee. Now, the reason why this is a chiddush, I'll tell you why this is a chiddush. Boats are considered movables. That's the assumption. They're not considered homes, they're movables. They move by their nature. Now, movables, as we finished saying before, if I steal your broom, which is a movable, and I use it, I don't pay for rent on the broom. I return the broom. What I do have to pay for any damages I did. Understood. If it's rent, if I'm a robber, I won't pay for rent, I'll pay for damages. If I'm a renter, then I'm going to pay for rent, but I'm not going to pay for damages because damages that's an onus and it's not my problem. Rav is saying basically you could treat this boat thief, you could treat it, you have a choice. You could either treat him as a robber, in which case he'll pay damages, not rent, or you could treat him as a renter, in which case he'll pay for rent, not damages. The point is you never pay for both. Because if you're a renter and an onus happens and it breaks, you're potter, but you have to pay for rent. If you're a robber, you don't pay for rent, but you pay for damages. So Rav says we're going to treat him as either one, which is a tremendous chiddush that we could look at it as not a robber, we could look at it as a renter. It's a big chiddush.
How is he classifying as seen as karka?
He's treating it as metaltalin.
Well, it's both.
No, I think I would look at it at both, but he's looking at it as straight up metaltalin. But he's allowing you.
Why would you pay rent?
Oh, so we're going to address that in a second. So the Gemara says, Ratza schara noitel, Ratza pchasa noitel. Now, so the Gemara says, Shmuel disagrees. He says, Shmuel says, why would you pay rent? Shmuel says, it's movable. Why are you paying rent? You pay for damages, no rent. You're a ganef. You're not a renter. So Rav is like, we allow you to like give the tag. You get to choose, is he a renter or a robber? Shmuel's like, why would he be a renter? He's a ganef. So says the Gemara, Amrav Papa, loy pligi. The truth is not a machlokes. Ha da'avida la'agra, ha deloy avida la'agra. The answer is it depends. What type of boat is it? Is the boat meant to be rented? If it's not meant to be rented, he's a ganef. If it's meant to be rented, then the guy just took it. You could really argue that he meant to do it as rent. He took it without permission. Okay, but at least he's in the category of renting. Yeah. You either are a renter or you're a ganef. You can't be both, right? If you're a ganef, you're not paying for rent. You're paying for damages. If you're a renter, you're paying for rent, not damages.
He took a boat without permission.
Took a boat without permission. So it says the Gemara, it's not a machlokes.
How do you rent without permission?
Oh, so that's the point. So the Gemara says really the case is it's a boat that's meant to be rented. It's a boat that's, it's up for rent. So Shmuel says, I don't care that it's up for rent. You're still a ganef. Rav says, because it's up for rent and he took it, you can look at him as a renter without permission.
You have a sign in front of the boat, like walking you find.
Yeah.
That says $5 an hour. Guy takes the boat. That's called a thief?
No. He didn't. It's not the case. The case is where it says $5 an hour, but ask us first. You just took it. So Shmuel says you're a ganef. Rav says it's meant to be rented. You could probably assume that he meant to rent it. He just didn't ask. Yeah.
Those city
bikes. It's interesting. That's the first approach to understand that. It's a little bit on this. You understand Rav a little bit more, and another approach. Or Iba Yisema, Hava Diliv Agra, Hadanachasay Agra, Hadanachasay Gazlanusa. Or you could say no. Everyone agrees we're talking about the same boat. We're talking about a boat that's up for rent. The case is, what did you think when you took it? If you intended to steal it, then Shmuel's right, that you're a ganef. If you intended to rent it, but then you just didn't ask permission, that's when Rav feels that there's wiggle room. On the one hand, you intended to rent it, so you're a renter. On the other hand, you didn't ask permission. You're a ganef. And therefore, we slap you on the bigger bill. It's interesting. The rest of the daf is very easy. We had in the Mishnah that for it to be a shinoi koina by a geneva, where you don't return the item, you return the value, it has to be nikar ha'isr. So if you remember, the Mishnah said, if you steal a coin and it cracks in half, you acquired it. But if you steal a coin and it's nifsal, which means discontinued, you didn't acquire it because there's no clear change in the coin itself. Says the Gemara, Rav Huna, nistak mamish, nifsal psul is the malchus. Rav Huna explained the way I said, which is, cracking means it's cracked, that's a shinoi. Discontinued, no shinoi. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says, no, psali malchus nami hanu nistak. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, even if it's discontinued, that's also a shinoi. Meaning, if I steal coins from you and it's discontinued entirely, that's a shinoi koina. Now, by the way, let me just spoil it. How is that shinoi koina? What change happened to the coin? It was just discontinued. The answer is, it's not that any change happened to the coin, but the change is discernible. You understand? A change happening to the coin means that like you drew on it, you broke it. The actual coin looks different. Rabbi Yehuda feels that you don't need for the coin to look different to be koine. It just has to be a discernible change happened. When they discontinue a coin, it's discernible. You want to know why? Because they put out a different coin that looks different. So Rabbi Yehuda says, discontinuing the coin entirely is weiter shinoi. Nothing happened to the coin itself. A change happened in the world that is discernible. Because when you stole it, it was in aguro, whatever. I don't know if they still use it. They probably still use this. Whatever. It was a kopek. And now they stopped using the kopek and they use the quarter. So you definitely can see the change. So Rabbi Yehuda feels that a shinoi, as long as it's discernible, is enough. So the Gemara speaks it out. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, what is not considered a shinoi? According to Rabbi Yehuda, the only change that's not a real change is where it's not discontinued entirely in the whole world, but this city stopped using it. Meaning, if the coin is discontinued entirely, that's a shinoi. The case that it's not a shinoi is where it's not discontinued entirely in the whole world, but in that city they stopped using it, but it's still legitimate in other cities. So it's not a real shinoi because it's not. It wasn't really discontinued. Okay. Amalei Rav Chizda Rav Huna l'didach damer nifsal psali malchus harei peres v'kiva yain v'chamitzu dichib psali malchus dami k'tani m'shalom k'shasach zela. Very strange question. According to Rabbi Huna, if it's discontinued, that's not a shina because there's no physical change. So why is that when fruit rot, that's a change? I know. To me, it's just like the Gemara, I guess, looks at it as like the outside looks the same. Oh, so the Gemara says, Amalei hasam nishtana time of recha, because it smells different and it tastes different. Meaning, even if you have an apple that on the outside looks perfect, but it's rotted in the inside, it's not like a discontinued coin, because if you bite into it, it tastes different, it looks different, it smells different. That's not the same. Okay, Amalei Rava Rav Yehuda.
If you keep fruit that for a while, you steal fruit, you keep it for a bit, and there's a shinoy because it's rotten.
Yeah, that's the Mishnah, yeah. Amalei Rabba Rav Yehuda.
You can't return that.
Correct. And you just give the value of the fruit at the time of the Geneva. Lididach da amrit psali malchus nami hainu nistak harit shuma v'nitras uchtani amrli shechlafenecha. So I mentioned this, but I just want to speak this outside. According to Rav Yehuda, a discontinued coin is also a shinoi. So why is it that if truma became tamei, that's not a shinoi? What's the difference? When truma becomes tamei, it's not a shinoi because it doesn't look different. So when a coin is discontinued, it also doesn't look different. It's the same looking coin that you stole. What's the difference? So the Gemara says, Amar le asam le minkar ezeka hacha minkar ezeka. You know what the difference is? Rabbi Yehuda does not believe that you need there to be a shinoi in the chayfetz itself, but rather it has to be a discernible change. Meaning, when you take truma and then it becomes tameh, that is not a discernible change to any human being. No one can tell the difference. It's not just that a shina didn't happen to the chayfetz. It's not discernible whatsoever. But when it comes to a coin that's discontinued, while the coin looks the same, the change is noticeable. Why? Because people will see that that is an old coin, and that coin is no longer in use. So at least the shinoi is nicker, it's discernible. That's the difference. It doesn't have to be that the shinoi is in the chayfetz itself. The item itself is unchanged, but at least it's discernible. Okay. New topic. This is going to take us to the end of the daf. Itmar. Hamalvis chaver hamatbeya v'nifsala hamatbeya. Okay, here's the case. This is a borrowing and a malvin loiva case. I borrow a table from Adam. Okay, the table's worth $100. I borrow a table from Adam, and I stipulate I will not return the table. I'll return $100. Let's do 100 quarters. I'll return 100 quarters. While the loan, during the time of the loan, the quarter is basically discontinued in America. It's still in use in some faraway areas, but it's not practically in use in America anymore. Here's the question. Now they're no longer using quarters, they're using dimes. I stipulate I'm going to give you quarters. The question is, can I give you quarters even though they are only in use in Kazakhstan? So like in America, they basically have no value. Yeah, if you go to Kazakhstan, they got value. Or do I have to give you what's used in America at the time? That's the shayla. So again, I borrowed an item and stipulated I would return the value of the item in quarters, because at the time that was what was in use in America. During the loan, the quarter is discontinued, but it's still in use in Eretz Yisrael. Okay? So the question is, can I give you quarters now? They're not in use in America. Listen, if it's not in use at all in the ganze Welt, of course it has no value. Of course you can't do that. But they're still in use in Israel. So can I give you quarters that still have use in Israel? I said I'd give you quarters, I'm giving you quarters. Or you say no. When a person makes a loan, they expect quarters that are in use in the country that they're in. That's the question. So, Itmar, Hamalvus, I'm sorry? Exactly. Hamalvus chaver matbeya v'nifsal matbeya. So Rav Amar, go to the next page. Noisin loy matbeya hayoytze b'yisashah. Rav says the guy wants what's in use in America. So if quarters are no longer in use in America and they're using euros, so you got to give them euros. Shmuel says no. Yachaloy marloy hayoytze mibeshan. Shmuel says no. You could tell the guy, go to Kazakhstan. Meaning, as long as the coin still has use somewhere in the world, give it to him and say, go to that place and you can use it. I told you I'll give you quarters. I'm giving you quarters. I did not have no value in America. Do they still have value in Kazakhstan? Yes, so go to Kazakhstan. That's the halacha. Now, by the way, it's a tremendous chiddush that you could do that because I understand that I stipulated quarters. It has no value, and you could just tell me go to China. That's a big chiddush. It says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, Mistabra milsa de Shmuel, disli orcha lemez lamishin, avalesle orcha loy. So Rav Nachman qualifies Shmuel, and he says, listen, Shmuel's shita that you could just tell the guy, listen, quarters are still in use in China, go to China, is only if you plan on going to China anyway. Meaning, you can't just give the guy the quarters and say, listen, they're still in use in Kazakhstan, go to Kazakhstan. I'm not going there. The case is where the guy happens to be going in a few months to Kazakhstan or to China, whatever it is. So you could say, listen, I'm going to give you quarters and I'm not messing you up. You won't have use for it in the next few months. Well, in a few months, when you get on the plane and you go to China, bring them with you and you'll be perfect. So Shmuel was only lenient in a circumstance where you plan on going. Okay. Fine, but B'kitzur Amaisa, we have this machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Do I have to give you the currency at the time in that location, or can I give you currency that works? Say, Svei Rav Rav Nachman. Rav asked Rav Nachman the following question: Ein mechalan al moishin yoitzim. We know that Ma'aser Sheni, you're supposed to bring the fruit to Yerushalayim, and we know that if you can't bring the fruit to Yerushalayim, you transfer it onto money. Now the question is, what if I have money? What's a currency that no longer exists anymore? That someone might legitimately have. I mean, aguros I have, but I've seen them still use it by the Charedim.
Confederate dollars.
Oh, okay. So I have Confederate dollars.
Well, they don't have numismatic value.
Oh, really? I have Confederate dollars in my house. I want to transfer the holiness of Ma'aser Sheni money onto Confederate dollars. Says the Mishnah. No good. You had the kuzivo, the kuziva Yerushalayim money, which was currency that was minted by Bar Kochba. It was not in use anymore. It doesn't work. The implication is the implication is the reason why you can't transfer the holiness onto the Confederate dollars is because it's completely out of circulation. But if it's in circulation in China, you could. So here's the kasha. Yeah?
Is it that it's not in circulation or that has no value?
Well, back then, even now, if it wasn't in circulation, it didn't have value. It wasn't. It could be melted down, but it would have to have enough value in silver. The point is, if
today a lot of these items that you're talking about, they have a value because of their age.
Oh no! I'm talking about a case where there was no value. It wasn't like antique. It was just out of circulation. So the point is like this: the Mishnah says you cannot transfer the holiness of Ma'aser Sheni onto money that is completely not in circulation. But the implication is that you could, if it has still value somewhere. So here's the question. The question is like this. The question is, that this Mishnah is basically saying that as long as it has value somewhere, it's good. So how could Rav Nachman say that Shmuel's only lenient, that you could use the currency in China, that you could pay back the quarters because they have value in China because you're going to go? Forget about because you're going to go. As long as it has value somewhere, that's enough. So why did Rav Nachman qualify Shmuel and say that it's only value in China because you're going to go to China, but if you're not going to go to China, you can't. It has no value. Over here, evidently you could be mechawel Ma'aser Sheni money on it, even though you don't plan on going. So Amarlei, hachamayeskinam kishein malchis makpidas zualzu. You know what the answer is? Basically, we have a contradiction. One brisa indicates that as long as it has value somewhere, it's considered a currency, and you could mechawel Ma'aser Sheni. But Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel that it's only a value if it has value somewhere and you plan on going. So do you have to plan on going or not? So you know what the answer is? The answer is, can you travel there? Meaning, are they makbid? If you could travel there, meaning, if they allow you the currency to be transferred, you're allowed to transfer the currency from country to country, then it doesn't have to be that you're going to travel there. Then it's fine. When did Shmuel say that you have to be traveling there? When you can't transfer the money. So the Gemara says, wait a minute. So you're telling me it has to have value. It has to be that I'm going to travel there because I can't transfer the money. If I can't transfer the money, then what does traveling there have to do? What does traveling there help? So the Gemara says, Eliki Kamer Shmuel Malchis Makpidazuazu. So 1 second. So Shmuel was talking about a case where Shmuel said that the quarters are no longer in circulation in America. The question is, can you pay back a loan? The fact that they're valued in China, can you pay back a loan? Shmuel says yes, but says Rav Nachman only if you plan on traveling there. Why? I thought as long as it has value somewhere, that's enough. The answer is, it's talking about a case where America will stop you from bringing the currency into China. China will not allow you to bring the currency. They won't allow you to travel across the border. So Shmuel said, if you plan on going there, then fine. If not, not. So 1 second. If you can't transfer the money, then what does it help the fact that you're going there? So the Gemara says, the case is you could smuggle it in easily. If they see it, they'll confiscate it, but if they don't see it, it's fine. So therefore, the case is like this. So because they stop it at the border, it has to be that you plan on going there. Because if you go there, then you could actually smuggle it in. But if you don't plan on going there, the fact that they stop it makes the currency really have no value in America. So in other words, I want to pay you back quarters in America that are no longer in use, but they're in use in China. So the answer is, it depends. If you're able to travel from USA to China and bring the money in openly, then it's fine. But if you can't bring it in openly, then mamish has no value in America because I can't even give it to anybody because they can't bring it into the country. Okay. Tashima. So let's bring another proof to try to refute Shmuel. So again, Shmuel's shita is that as long as you plan on traveling there, that you could say, take it to China. As long as you travel there, the fact that it has value in China is Yaitzazan. Here's the kasha, Tashima. Ein mechalin amoy shel kan v'hein bebavel. Let's say you're in Bavel and you want to transfer the holiness of fruit in Eretz Yisrael, right? You want to transfer Ma'aser Sheni fruit. You have fruit in Tel Aviv. You happen to be in Bavel. You want to transfer it onto cash. Here's the rule: if you're in Bavel, you have to use Babylonian money. But if you're in Bavel, you cannot use Israeli money. You cannot transfer it onto shekel when you're in Bavel. And so says the Brisa, Ein mechalan amoy shel kan vein Bavel. If you're in Eretz Yisrael, you can't transfer the holiness onto Babylonian money. And if you're in Bavel, v'shel Bavel hein kan. And if you're in Bavel, you can't transfer the holiness onto shekel. Shel Bavel vein Bavel mechalan. You can only do it if you're in Bavel and it's Babylonian money. But if you're in Bavel, you can't transfer the holiness onto shekel. Why? The answer is because it doesn't have a value in the country you're in. It has a value in Eretz Yisrael, don't care. So here's the kasha. What did Shmuel say? That if I borrow money, if I borrow an item and I say I'll pay you back with quarters, and then they stop using the quarters, they only use it in Eretz Yisrael or in China, says Shmuel, fine. As long as it's used somewhere, that's enough. But how come by Ma'aser Sheni, if I'm in Bavel, I can't transfer it onto Israeli shekel? Why? Because shekel doesn't have value in Eretz Yisrael, in Bavel. What do you see? That for it to have value, it has to be that it's used in that location. So why is it that I could pay you back, forget about quarters. Let's go a case. Shekel was originally used in America. At the time of the loan, said, I'll pay you back shekel. They stopped, they discontinued. But they use it in Eretz Yisrael. Says Shmuel, fine. As long as they use it in Eretz Yisrael, Yaitzazan, that's fine. But how come by Ma'aser Sheni, I can't transfer the money when in America onto shekel? Because it doesn't have value in America. But so what? Shmuel says we look at the value as where it will be. So who cares that it doesn't have value here? So that's the Gemara's kasha. Kitani miyus ein mechalon amoy shel kan vein bavel. Avagav de soivel lemesak lahasam. So the Gemara says, Halchamay eskina shemalchis makpidazuzu. The answer is, you know what the case is? If it has value somewhere else, that's really enough, like Shmuel says. So how come I can't transfer the holiness in Bavel onto shekel? Because we're talking about a case where Bavel will stop you from bringing currency outside of their country. So generally, meaning, Malchis Makpidazuazu, meaning, so they're going to stop you. So normally Shmuel's right. As long as the currency has value somewhere, that's enough. I say, how come I can't transfer the holiness while I'm in Bavel onto Israeli currency? We're talking about a case where they'll stop you from bringing the money into Israel. So it mamish has no value where you are. So wait a minute. So what could you do? If you're going to be in Bavel, you have to transfer the holiness onto Babylonian coins. Right. But if they're going to stop you at the border, you got to get to Israel, right? The whole point of Ma'aser Sheni is you transfer the holiness onto cash, you take the cash to Yerushalayim, and you spend it. So you're telling me, how come you can't use Israeli shekel, transfer it onto shekel? Because they'll stop you at the border. They won't let you take it in. So what do? Transfer it onto Babylonian money. But they'll stop you at the border. The Israeli customs won't let you in. The same way the Babylonian customs will not let you take Israeli shekel out, the Israeli customs won't let you take Babylonian shekel in, the Babylonian money in. So Anan says, so what, if you're telling me that they're at the border, you can't transfer the currency over border to border, so then why are you able to transfer the holiness onto Babylonian money? What does that help you? You got to get it to Yerushalayim. So the Gemara says, you know what the answer is? What do you normally do with Ma'aseh Sheni money? You normally transfer it onto cash, and then you bring the cash to Yerushalayim. You know what you could do? You could transfer it onto cash, and then buy right away in Bavel a cow, and walk the cow across the border. They'll stop you from bringing in money. They won't stop you from bringing animals. See, here's what you do. You transfer the holiness onto cash, use that cash to buy an animal, and walk the animal across the border. Okay, a couple more points, and then we'll stop. Now, we just said before that you cannot transfer the holiness onto cash, onto Israeli cash, only in Babylonian cash. But wait a minute, didn't they say didn't they enact that all coins can pass? All coins are acceptable for holiness of for Ma'aseh Sheni, meaning all coins are accepted. So why are you saying that it has to be Babylonian? I thought all coins are accepted. The answer is Amar Rav Zer loy kasha. Kam bizman sheyad yisrael tkifa al umas ha'olam. Kam bizman sheyad umas ha'olam tkifa al asma. The answer is who is in charge of Eretz Yisrael? If the Jewish people are in charge of Eretz Yisrael, they would be comfortable with all currencies, and therefore you could transfer the cash onto all currency. But when the Romans were in charge, or the Greeks were in charge, v'chule, or the Babylonians, they would stop. So it just depends on who is in control of the customs of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara ends off, Tanur Rabbanan, Ezu matbeya shel Yerushalayim. What is the coin of Yerushalayim? There was a coin that was minted in the times of the Gemara. What was the coin? David and Shlomo Tzadachar. On one side it had the words David and Shlomo. Yerushalayim Yira Kodesh B'Tzadachar. And on the other side it had the words Yerushalayim Yira Kodesh. Ezu matbeya shel Avram Avinu. And what is the coin that Avram Avinu minted? So it is Zakim and Zakena B'Tzadachar. An old man and a young man, an old woman on one side, which is Avram and Sarah, and a young woman, a young man on the other side, which is Yitzchak and Rivka. Let's just finish up one last case. The Gemara has one last case. You'll see the problem. Very interesting. I give you a loan, okay? I borrow a table from Adam, and I promise to pay back 10 quarters. While I'm gone, during the loan, they don't discontinue the quarter, but they replace it with a quarter that has much more silver. So now here's the question. I borrow a $100 table, and I say I'm going to pay back $100 in quarters. Now, $100 in quarters at the time of the loan was, let's say, 100 quarters. Okay. The problem is now it's 50 because now it's still 100 quarters, but the silver is much more. So the question is, what do I do? Do I pay back the same 100 quarters and Adam just makes more silver, or do you say, no, that's ribis. You can't give him back more than he lent. He's getting more silver back. What you have to give him is the value of what the new 100 coins would have bought at the time of the loan. So says the Gemara, you give him the new quarters. Give him the new quarters. So now, wait a minute. Now, Amarle, Afil Kinafia, what if the new quarters are so large that they're large as a sieve? Amarle, it's fine. Amarle, Afil Kikartia, what if they're the size of a kartia? Amarle, it's fine. Now, here's the problem. Why is it ribis? It's very, very simple, just to end off with this. I know it's late, but we'll end with this. I borrow $100 worth of coins from Adam, and I pay back $100 of the new coins. Now, the new coins have more silver. There's two reasons why this is ribis. What's the first reason? Buying power. New coins with more silver has more buying power. That's why it's ribis. Now, for that, I'll just say it outside, we'll see it inside. For that, it may not be actual ribis because the same way they replace the coins may not have actually more buying power. The market might have fluctuated.
The coins have more silver.
More silver. So why would more silver matter? So number one is more buying power. Did I lose you on this? Yeah. So more silver is more buying power. But it doesn't necessarily have to be more buying power because it could be with inflation that the new amount, the old coins with the less silver bought 100 apples, and the new coins with more silver still buy 100 apples. It's possible that the market...
But you have that anytime dealing with changing coins.
Correct. But so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Papa. Well, Chazina, let's check. Imachmas tiva zil menakinle. Yeah, if the buying power is different, then fine. But imachmas tira zil loy menakinle. But let's say the buying power is the same. The market could have fluctuated with the silver. So Gemara says, yeah, but forget about the buying power. You can melt it down. 100 of the old quarters and 100 of the new quarters. Yeah, Dad, listen. There's the buying power, which. Okay, the buying power might be the same. You could melt it down. It has more silver. It has more value. That's ribbis. So the Gemara says, "Hakashavach lenenischa," but it has more silver in it to melt down. Forget about the buying power. You can live in a society where a block of gold can buy one apple, but a block of gold still has more value. So the more silver is, you can melt it down. It has more buying power. So to that not my power, it has more silver. El kihad Rav Papa Rav Huna Bar Yeshua Avdi Uvda Bezuzi Da'agadermis Tia Adasar Betamia. The answer is, if it's more than 25% more silver, then it's a problem. Less than 25%, the actual silver doesn't matter because the cost of melting it down, you'll actually won't make money. But if it's more than 25% more silver, then you'll actually make money by melting it down, then that's ribbis, and then you have to adjust. But within 25% or less, it's fine. It's more, buying power is the same. It's more silver, I can melt it down. The cost of melting it down, you won't make any more money.
So let me ask.
You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. That was the ratio back then. For melting it down, that you only made money if it was 25%. It cost 25% melting loss costs, whatever that is.
Let me understand.
We'll stop here.